Truth or Politics. I'm your host, Darlene Price, and tonight we're going to cover a couple of topics, one of which is going to fold right into our main topic, is the justice system. Do they engage in selective prosecution? And I'm here to tell you, after 40 years of working as an investigator for the prosecution, 20 years of prosecution, 20 years defense, the answer to that is a resounding yes. And this is probably one of them. We were going to cover the state troopers situation first, but because of what just came out less than an hour ago, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know by now that President Donald Trump was convicted in New York of all 34 counts of falsifying business records by a jury of 12 New Yorkers who delivered it over 2 days to reach the decision in a case rifled with the descriptions and secret deals, tabloid scandals, kind of like a Watergate thing. The jury found that Donald Trump had faked records to conceal the purpose of money given to his online fixer, Michael D. Cohen, who was his attorney at the time. The false records disguised the payment as an ordinary legal expenses when in truth, Mr. Trump was reimbursing Mr. Cohen for a $130,000 hush money deal. The fixer struck with a porn star named Stormy Daniels to silence her on the sexual liaison with Mr. Trump. That's what they convicted him of. Now, I'm going to get into some of this. Here's the problem. Well, let's get into a little bit more of the history of it. Cohen, who paid the adult film star $130,000 for her silence about the affair with Trump as legal expenses. The prosecution alleged the falsification were made to conceal Trump's violation of New York state election laws. So it was basically, even though it was paying legal fees, the actual crime, the predicate crime, was election law tampering. Okay. Now, before I get into this, let me just say this. Anybody who's been following this show for the last 13 years knows the 4 years that Donald Trump was president. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Nobody spent more time throwing Donald Trump under the bus than me, okay? I am not a Donald Trump fan. So before you try to label me as a right-wing Trumper, you would be incorrect. I'm pretty liberal on a lot of stuff. I believe in unions. I believe in climate change real. I'm a major tree hugger. I am not over there with the Donald Trump right-wingers. However, my mama had a saying when I was little, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And I've been through a crap load of jury trials, just went through one up in Pulaski County as a defense investigator. And I'm here to tell you, whether you like Donald Trump, hate Donald Trump, irregardless, this is America. And, you know, it becomes a dangerous situation when the justice system can put crosshairs on somebody because they don't like them for whatever reason and engage in what's called selective prosecution. Now, that sounds like a fancy word, and people are probably saying, okay, what does she mean by that? Well, there's a lot of problems with this case that I have. First off, let's go into the judge that sat on this case. The judge is a Manhattan judge named Juan Merchant. Most rules in judge world, okay, all the way up to the Supreme Court, is that if there's even the appearance of a conflict of interest, let me repeat that, a appearance of a conflict of interest, not many conflict of interests, plural. If you have the appearance, you should recuse yourself. Well, let me read this real conflict, more than one, of interest that this judge had.
Tell them what recuse means.
Yeah, well, you should recuse yourself. You should sit on the case. Okay, and I'll say this, for the most part, our judges here in McCreary County and a lot of judges, I'll say this about Teresa Whitaker in Pulaski County. She does a good job. Here in McCreary County, our judges, if there's even an appearance, they get out of the case. They don't want it. They don't want even to be accused of anything. This is what this guy did. His name's Juan Merchant. His daughter is the Democratic political consultant. Her name's Lorraine. Lorraine is the president of the Authentic Campaigns, which has collected at least $70 million in payments from the Democratic candidates and causes since she helped. So she's his daughter's financially gaining from the Democrat Party. Okay, right there, $70 million. That's 70 million reasons why he should have gotten off that case. He should not have sat on that case, okay? Then, her firm also represents Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Senator Majority Chuck Schumer, which is where? Right there in New York, okay? Hello, this is multiple. These are not appearances of conflicts of interest. These are conflicts of interest. This judge should never have sat on this case. That's right from the beginning. Red flag, red flag, red flag. And again, not a Trump fan. I'm not. And I'm not telling anybody vote for Biden, vote for Trump. I don't like either one of them. I can't stand either one of them, to be quite honest. But, you know, fair is fair. And this, the more I learned about this and followed this, the more I just like shook my head, okay? So then, Trump, during the trial, he would hold press conferences. And he would talk about the trial, okay? What does the judge do? He issues a gag order only on Trump. Now, the defense could go out and run their mouth all they wanted. I mean, or the prosecution could. Okay, hold up. And, you know, Pulaski County, a trial recently, I'm not going to say which one, the judge up there to the defense and the prosecution working the trial, you know, not the media, said, until I reach my final decision, no press. But it was both sides. Okay, that would have been fair. That didn't happen here. Again, that just shows an incredible bias to put a gag order, especially somebody who's running for political office. That just run me. That's a red flag too. Again, do not throw me over there with the right-wing Trumpers, because anybody that knows me for 4 years, I am not. I don't like him. But, you know, this is wrong. This is just wrong. And here's a few other dozen things here. Cohen, his attorney, when this went down, Donald Trump is a lot of things. One thing he's not, he's a big mouth, he's a con artist. He's not a lawyer, all right? Michael Cohen was his lawyer. Now, when you trust a certified lawyer in the state where you're working, and they tell you this is legal, and the lawyer does it, okay, the lawyer should be the only one going to prison. Because Donald Trump, you know, I know a lot of you love him out there and everything, but he's kind of a bonehead. He's not all that. And what he ain't, and I know I'm defending Donald Trump. Harvey Meadows is falling off his couch right now. What he's not is an attorney, okay? When you take advice from your lawyer, and your lawyer does the criminal, not only tells you this is cool, but he goes out and does this. He's the one that handled the payment. He's the one that did all this. Then the lawyer should go to jail, and only the lawyer.
How does that make Donald Trump guilty? How does that make Donald Trump guilty of anything?
That's my point, okay? If you're following the advice of your lawyer, to me, that should insulate you. And that law firm, that Cohen should go to jail, number one. Number two, Cohen did go to jail for a while for some other things. Cohen has turned out to be one of the biggest fixer liars there is. I don't know if you guys remember this, but you had the big church, I forget the name of the church, where he did all the covering up for that guy. The guy was sleeping with his congregation, and you name it, he was doing it, okay? What was the name? I forget the name of that church. One of the biggest churches around, and Cohen was the fixer of that guy. And there was a bunch of illegalities there. And Cohen's he's a creeper. He's a crook. He's the one with the law degree. You know, he's the one should be sitting in jail. He should have been indicted on all this. Not, in my opinion, not Trump. You know, and again, not a Trump fan. But you're expecting a businessman to be, you know, a lawyerly and understand all the legal. Let me tell you something. The legal system, especially the criminal justice system, I don't remember where I heard this from, but somebody coined this phrase. Going through the legal system, especially in a criminal case, it's like going to a foreign country where everybody speaks a foreign language and all the signs are in a different language. The average Joe, even a smart businessman is not gonna, that's why you hire lawyers, okay? And a criminal, this kind of stuff, lawyers have to specialize. That's how complicated it is. To go into property law, you have to specialize in that because it's so complicated. Going into criminal law, criminal lawyers would never just all of a sudden start doing tax law. Most of them would.
In a case, before the jury goes out, don't they get instructions from...
I'm going to hit that. I know what you're
I'm just concerned as to what the instructions were and what they actually did find Trump guilty of, because from everything I've seen, the legal system was guilty.
Here's another problem. Good segue. Okay. What normally happens in most states, and especially in Kentucky, here's where Kentucky does something very right. Jury instructions are given before closing arguments. Okay, now why is that? Because let's say I'm a defense attorney. You have to list, the jury has to know, and the attorneys have to know, what am I defending if I'm a defense attorney? If the elements, you have what's called the elements of the offense. And jury instructions, you have, the judge will read that the prosecution has to meet these elements, okay? These 5 things, let's say. Sometimes it's 20 things, whatever. Let's say these 5 things. When they read the jury instructions, then I, as a prosecutor, can talk to the jury and say, now, here's where he didn't meet this instruction, okay? They didn't meet this because for this reason, I can attack that. On the other side, the prosecutor could say, we meant this is how we meant it, this is the evidence. This is in closing arguments. This judge, and in New York, the jury instructions are given after closing arguments. I've never heard of that before in my life. That's crazy because it takes away from the defense. It benefits the prosecution in a big way. It's prejudice against the defense. It very much is. And in this case, the judge cautioned the attorneys, do not cover the law. I'm going to cover the law. So they couldn't even address, he basically put a gag order on the defense attorney that they didn't meet this element of the defense, even if the lawyer could guesstimate. Okay?
That's so wrong.
That's anybody who's ever been involved in the justice system, that is extremely prejudicial to the defense. Big time. Big time. That blew my mind. I had to go different places to research it because I thought, no, that's not right. Because one of the commentaries, I forget where it was talking about that. And this guy's a judge, and he was talking about this, and I'm like, and this guy's usually right, correct. I forget what news thing he's on. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So I went and verified it. It took me a while, and I'm like, damn, he's right. This is how they're doing it. I'm like, you got to be kidding. Okay.
I have one question. How in the world do they convince unanimously every one of those jurors to not see through this scam?
Well, I'm going to get to that, why this should have never been held there, okay? This should have been moved. This should have never been brought in that district where Donald Trump has a reputation. This should have been moved. And this judge should have been moved. This should have never been tried there in the first place. It's too prejudicial against the defense, again, to be tried there. Here's the other thing. They listed, in order to get to the felony, what they did in this case, which, again, I've never heard of this in my life anywhere. If you have to do these 2 misdemeanors, or a combination of these 2 misdemeanors, or to get to the felony, okay, the underlying misdemeanors, you must have this to qualify to go to the felony. In order to convict Donald Trump or anybody else of a felony, then you have to list the misdemeanors. And you can't just say, well, here's 5 of them, pick one, and it reaches the felony. That's what happened in this case. I kid you not. And I'm like, no. Again, when I heard about this, I'm like, no, you can't do that. I mean, not just me. My husband's an attorney. All the attorneys I know, and a lot of them don't like Donald Trump, okay? But they're like, wait a minute, you can't do that. It's like, that's what they did. So that's like a shotgun approach. Let's just throw a bunch of stuff up here. If one of them sticks, you get to convict them of a felony. That's just, in 40 years, I've never seen that. My husband will tell you in 40 years, he's never seen it. Other lawyers that I've talked to, nobody, that is extreme prejudice against the defendant. Again, I don't like Donald Trump, I'm telling you. For the new people, talk to people who've watched this show for 13 years, I'll tell you, I am not a Trump fan.
I have a question. Is all of this enough to overturn it on appeal?
I don't know. We'll see. It's going to get appealed. We'll see. Some of this, though, these are the rules of New York City. New York State. So don't get in trouble in New York, or your ass is going to jail, no matter what. I just think that that's amazing. Here's another thing too. He ruled that the defense subpoena was okay. Judge Berchance blocked one of Trump's lawyers from forcing NBC to provide them with materials relating to its recent documentary about Stormy Daniels. Okay, let me go back for a minute. NBC did a documentary on Stormy Daniels, and of course, part of that was Trump. The defense subpoenaed NBC. We want that documentary. Okay, the judge ruled no. Okay, well, wait a minute. Here we go again. Under the law, you have this what's called Brady material. Okay, if there's anything that could be prejudicial that's out there to a defendant, okay, whether it's news or whatever, you get that material. Okay, you should be allowed to have access to that material. And the judge ordered that no. That's something that absolutely
should be overturned.
It can overturn this case. Definitely he can get it on appeal. What by Brady material, Brady is a U.S. Supreme Court case which says anything that can lead, it doesn't even have to benefit the defense. If it can lead to information that could benefit the defense, you have to turn it over. Usually it's used, like that trial up there we just did, it's usually used against the prosecution, like for the cops. If a cop's got a history of beating the hell out of somebody, and in this case, he wrongfully is prosecuting somebody, we get to have the history of that cop or that department. Like Pulaski County Police, Pulaski County Evidence Room, and their evidence missing. That was Brady material. All of that information, rightfully so, the judge made a good decision up there. All that got turned over to different defense attorneys. That's called Brady material. This would be considered Brady material, okay? And the fact that this judge said, no, you're not getting this, is bias. It shows bias. Not to mention, I think that among other things is going to get this overturned. And again, for those out there who don't know me, for me to have to sit here and defend Donald Trump, like I said, my brother Harvey, he's a total Trump fan, and I love him to death. But Harvey Meadows, I'm sure, is stroking out because I'm sitting here defending Donald Trump. So, but, there's a bigger picture here, folks. And there's some other things. Let me see what else is wrong with this case. I don't care for long opposing arguments. Jury can't. Oh, jury instructions. Yeah. This judge wouldn't let the jury take. Jury instructions are long. These jury instructions are like over 30-something pages. You're talking a stack. Well, the judge is required to read the jury instructions. But what normally happens, I've never heard of this anywhere else but in this case, okay? What normally happens is the jury all gets copies of the jury instructions, read along with me. And then they get to take them back to the jury room. Because if there's something there, maybe they can reread it themselves. How can you ask a question about something that you don't have in front of you? So if there was any confusion about the jury instructions, what are you supposed to do? By memory? They're going to memorize 38, 40 pages or something?
In just a few minutes?
Just a few.
Not possible.
That is highly prejudicial.
They took them back, right? They collected them back up, right?
Yeah. The jury wasn't allowed to have even one copy back there. That is extremely prejudicial to the defense. Okay? It just is. That's another thing that I think the Supreme Court is going to rule. I hope that in and of itself needs to be a reason that the Supreme Court overturns this, because that's what's called bad precedent. Cases like this, if they stand and this kind of stuff is allowed to go on, a judge who's prejudicial, a judge who has conflicts of interest, these types of things, it sets a precedent if it's allowed.
And then from then on, they treat it as if it's the law, that it is okay to do that.
Right. It sets a precedent. It's called stare decisis. It means it's already been decided. Okay? This is not good. I'm hoping, and again, not a fan of Donald Trump, but this case is disturbing. Here's the other thing. If the justice system can put crosshairs on a politician or anybody like this and pull this kind of stuff, and there's more. I mean, if you guys watched the case, even if you can't stand Donald Trump, if you're any kind of objective, educated observer watching this trial, hopefully you would see, wait a minute, I can't stand Trump. He's a con artist. He's this, that. I'd never vote for him for president. Whatever your feelings are, red flag, red flag, red flag. And here's the thing, folks. And I've got Democrat friends, and I got Republican friends, and we're all friends, okay? Because we don't engage in this bull crap. I got family members that love Trump. I got family members that love Biden. I got friends that love both of them. You know, I can't stand either one of them, so I'm neutral. But that's not going to cause me to stop being friends or family, loving my family because they like a politician. I mean, people who engage in that, grow up. You should never sacrifice a good friend or a family member over a politician, ever. But even if you can't stand Trump, if you have any objectivity whatsoever and followed this trial, and what happened before the trial, you got it. These red flags are scary because you know what? All you rich people up there in New York too, all these rich businessmen, you think you Democrat rich businessmen up there who are cheering, you better think twice, because you think that they can't put crosshairs on you and do the same thing to you or anybody else, you're wrong. Here's the other thing too, folks, to think about. Cases like this, if they're allowed to set bad precedent across the nation or in any state, here's the problem. Donald Trump is a billionaire, okay? Whatever he is. He had the dream team of defense attorneys. If the justice system can put crosshairs on somebody and
get him
convicted.
A poor fellow like you or I.
Say it again.
If they can get him where he was with the assets that he had, what can they do to a poor fellow like you and I? This is a destruction of our legal system, and they came after him this time. The next time it'll be you. They'll come after you next. And if you allow this, you got to stop this. And it's up to you. Don't think it's not. It's us. We're allowing it. We need to stop it.
Here's the other thing. If this case was all that about campaign financing, here was my first red flag when I started hearing about this. Way back when this started. I'm like, campaign, what? Where's the feds? Why isn't the feds doing this? Why aren't the feds doing this? If it's really that bad, and these are felonies, why isn't the federal prosecution taking this over? That was a red flag to me too. When the feds, who don't like Donald Trump either, let's face it, when they're not touching a case, and election financing, election tampering, they're not taking a case, and the state, all of a sudden the state prosecutor is. Folks, I'm telling you, that's a red flag. That is a red flag. That just tells me that there was, they're not touching it. They're not touching it for a reason. You know, and I don't know what for sure. I can't read their minds, but that was a red flag to me.
They're destroying this nation, plain and simple. Without a legal system, this nation will fail. And when it fails, the people who have sat by and let it happen are going to regret it so bad. But it'll be too late then.
You know, and part of this is, a lot of this is the media too. Most media, they're either, you know, either complete right or complete left. There's very few media, we're one of them, that is objective and calls balls and strikes. And that's what we try to do here. You know, just because I can't stand Trump, I don't like him, that doesn't mean that this is okay. That doesn't mean that this is okay. And I'm going to get into a case right here in Kentucky. You know, here's something else I want you guys to do. I'm not going to get into the details of this case because you can go watch the whole interview. If you think this can't happen to you, think again. Jim Fowler, who's out there, I know he's watching tonight. Jim Fowler's watching tonight. Go to YouTube. Type in Darlene Price, Jim Fowler, Truth or Politics, or Jim Fowler, Truth or Politics, or Darlene. You got to put Jim Fowler's name in there. Jimfaller. Watch the interview that I do of Jim Fowler. Okay, he is a whistleblower that the federal government got very pissed off at him because he was blowing the whistle on the FBI and a corrupt prosecutor out of Florida. And what that interview will detail, he needs to write a book about this, the way the federal government went after him, and when the feds couldn't get him and that prosecutor couldn't get him, they sicked the IRS on him. Okay, and that's the other tool that the feds do. If the feds can't get you, if the FBI can't get you, trump up something, they'll sick the IRS on you. The IRS has become, you know, a tool for federal agencies who you know, they can't get you, so they'll try to, you know, they'll sick the IRS on you. That case is jaw-dropping. Go watch that interview, and for years, the fight that he went through with that. And, you know, for those right here in Kentucky. And most of that happened right here in Kentucky, that case. And then the Rick Pitino, Karen Cipher case. You know, I still to this day believe that she's innocent and she was raped, and I believe that Rick Pitino did it. And because he had a judge in his pocket and a prosecutor in his pocket, and all, you know, he had the dream team of prosecution her, you know.
She spent time in jail.
She spent time in jail. We did our best and got her out pretty quick, but, you know, it shouldn't have happened that way. So that was another kangaroo court over in Louisville. And then later on, you know, look what he did. You know, it came out that he was hiring hookers for the team and everything else. So Louisville ate that one. And be careful who you stand by your man when, you know, that kind of thing. So if you think that can't happen, it already has many, many, many times. Please go watch that interview. It's on YouTube. Interview between Darlene Price, Jim Fowler, Truth or Politics. It's an amazing interview. It goes, it's a little bit longer than an hour, but I'm telling you folks, it's worth watching, because what this man and his family went through is just jaw-dropping against the federal government.
What we need to know is, what are you going to do? Are you going to go vote this time? Are you going to get out there and politic and try to make some changes, fix some of this? Or are you going to continue to say, well, they're not bothering me, so I'm going to sit here quietly and hope it passes me by? You can't do that. It's not working. Our nation is falling down around us, and we've got to do something.
Okay, so, and to caveat on that, every year, this past primary, same thing, 94% of all the people in the Kentucky primary got voted right back in, 94%. It's always over 90%. And the Mitch McConnells, the Nancy Pelosi's at the federal level, they all get voted back in. And then people sit and wonder, well, why can't we get any positive change? When you get the government you vote for, when the same people keep getting voted back in there by the voters, and it's both parties. It's both parties. Anybody that's been in there for 20 years or more, you got to go. You're the problem. Okay, so I want to cover this because this recently happened too. I covered this in a previous show. I cover this in my book that's coming out. Hopefully this book will be out within a year. People keep saying, when's your next book coming out? It's like, well, every time I think I'm finished, something happens and I have to put it in the book. It's the book that never ends. This book is called While No One's Watching, and it covers a lot of the stuff that we've covered on the show. But if you piecemeal on the show, this story, this story, this story, this story, you put it all in a book and it's just jaw-dropping. This is a part of it. Here's what happened. We covered Kentucky evidence rooms being a joke. We started investigating the Pulaski County Sheriff's evidence room because we heard that, evidence was missing. Turned out there was like 5 pages of missing evidence, plus money. Ballpark $25,000 to $30,000 of money missing too. And this missing evidence started in 2015 all the way up to relatively currently, about a year or so ago. So then we started looking into other evidence rooms. Somerset had a commander, I think it was a captain or something. He's doing time right now, by the way. He's doing time. He went into the Somerset evidence room right there at the big, right under, Mayor Keck's office.
Not just once,
many times went into that evidence room. Stole pills, stole evidence. I think he even stole a gun.
Guns.
I don't think he stole money. I think it was drugs and a gun. Anyways, we covered that. So I started looking into this and making some phone calls, doing some research. And lo and behold, there are no, get ready for this one, there are no rules or laws or regulations that say that evidence rooms in Kentucky, we're talking evidence rooms where criminal evidence is stored. Evidence that can put your butt behind bars forever or exonerate you if you're interested. Right. Evidence rooms don't have to be audited or inspected ever by any objective inspection from any outside agency. Let me repeat that. Evidence rooms in Kentucky and what happened with the Pulaski County evidence room, it showed they hadn't had any kind of audits or inspection or nothing. And the only inspection they did have, once all this stuff was missing, was, they got to audit themselves or inspect themselves. That's that is unbelievable, but that is a fact in Kentucky.
The fact that they break the law when they steal from these evidence rooms is the minor part of it. The major part is that this evidence that would have been used in a trial to either acquit someone or convict someone is gone. And once again, broken justice system. And we stand and we do nothing about it.
Okay, so what happened was 3 KSP troopers, over in the Louisville area, okay, so it's been in it was 3 separate evidence rooms in the Louisville area. These 3 KSP, one of them was a captain, I've got it here somewhere. Anyway, these 3 KSP, one of them was a captain, I think one was a sergeant. They found out, I guess they were the evidence custodian, that cops had been coming in there and stealing evidence out of the Kentucky State Police evidence rooms. These 3 guys do the right thing. They reported. What happens? KSP management, they retaliate against them. They start getting transferred. They start getting threatened, harassed. Shut the hell up, cover this up, or else we don't want the embarrassment. They don't shut up. They're like, oh, hell no, this ain't right. They stick to their guns. They try to get something done, and their lives are ruined, okay? If you think that can't happen, go read my book, Bordergate, the story the government doesn't want you to read. Sold at Amazon stores. Cheap plug. That's exactly what happened to me and several other federal agents in my former agency. We identified... Turn off. I would silence that. Sorry about that. We identified, myself and a whole task force full of agents, we identified that corrupt managers from the United States Customs Service allowed in 25 to 40 tons of narcotics into the country. Now, there's a whole story behind that. Go read the book, Bordergate. We were extremely retaliated against. The whole team was. And that's detailed in that book. So this happens to cops all over the country. Now, are there whistleblower protection laws? Yes. If you don't enforce those laws, they're useless. What happened is these 3 cops, KSP cops, Kentucky State Police cops, they filed suit under the Kentucky whistleblower protection laws. Now, Kentucky, believe it or not, on the books, the laws are actually pretty good protection, better than the federal government. Absolutely.
They go by the law.
Well, right. So, they sue. They win. Their lawsuit goes in front of a jury. Jury unanimously gives them, I think it was $900,000 each. I think it was about $900,000 each, okay? In a lawsuit, and rightfully so. What does the Court of Appeals of Kentucky do?
Now wait, does that include this young lady that we elected from here to one?
No, she's not from here. No, she's on the Supreme Court.
I'm talking about the Supreme Court. Does that include?
No, this is the Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals.
It's one step below her. Is that right?
Yeah, this is the Kentucky Court of Appeals.
Yes.
Okay.
One step below.
The Kentucky Court of Appeals. It doesn't get to the Supreme Court. This goes to the Kentucky Court of Appeals. Overturns this. Now, I had a little ceramic donkey, and I forgot and left it at home. Because Michael, man, it's your fault. No, I'm kidding. You were supposed to text me. We're going to start bringing. I'm going to bring that little donkey, and we're going to start handing out what's called. I'm going to start calling it Jackass Award. Okay.
Well, at least you're doing something. But you're not like these people out here. At least you're doing something.
Well,
even if it's just a little jackass.
Okay. We're going to start giving out the Jackass Award, and I'm going to hold up my little jackass to people. And today, and I'm sorry I don't have my little ceramic donkey jackass to show you, but from now on, I'm going to have it. I will not forget it next time. And each show, we're going to try to present the Jackass Award to somebody. And today, that Jackass Award goes to the Kentucky Court of Appeals. What these people have done is they have made it open season on cops who want to do the right thing and report stuff in Kentucky. Now, anybody above them who wants to shut them up can retaliate against them, fire them, transfer them, treat them like crap, give them the worst assignments, do whatever they want, harass them, and guess what? They'll get away with it. Thank you, Kentucky Court of Appeals. Now, I'm hoping this law firm out of Louisville, which is a pretty good law firm, I'm hoping they reappeal this all the way to the Supreme Court, Kentucky Supreme Court. And we'll see what the Supreme Court rule does, because this is bad. Also, what you have also done, recipients of the Jackass Award today, is you have condoned anybody can go in and steal evidence out of the evidence rooms. And, now who's going to report it? How many cops who know about this case are going to report it?
I'd like to ask a question about the one that stole from Somerset that did get convicted of doing it, did 18 or 20 times, anyway, many, many times he did it, and he did get convicted of it. You would think if it were you or I who stole anything, if we were convicted of a crime like that, we'd get a few years for one time. But he did it many, many times and was convicted of it. Can you remember exactly how much time he actually got, and what will happen in the future? Will he get out early or what?
I don't know. I mean, that's a whole separate branch of government. The bail people that bond.
I understand, but that's what we got to know. We got to know: are these guys going to actually be held to the penalties that we convict them of?
Probably not. He got convicted. He got 5 years, and what he will probably do if he behaves completely, he will probably do, I'm guessing, around a year. But that's a whole math problem that the Kentucky. I got a brain fart. I can't think of the.
But do you not find that amazing that if it was you or I or some common Joe who got convicted of stealing one thing from the evidence room in the Somerset Police Department, do you think they would just give them 1 year? No, they'd spend a big part of their life in prison, and yet that policeman will probably spend maybe a year, and even at that, he'll be in a nice place where the rest of the population of the I'm guessing of this, but I'm guessing he'll be in a nice place where the population of the prison can't get to him because they don't like crooked cops in prison.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about the Kentucky prison system that much, other than that's a whole nother story.
Yes, it is.
But folks, this is dangerous. This precedent that these cops and what they went through, we covered it on the case, and I'm going to cover it in more detail in my book, their whole story. What these guys went through, the retaliation was unbelievable. It was just psychologically damaging. You know, being a police officer, especially if you're a good one and you're trying to do the right thing, that's a difficult job. It is a difficult, damn dangerous job, and you get paid little money for it, okay, compared to what you do, okay? And for these state troopers to be treated like this, win their case, a jury agree, and then they get to overturn. Again, the justice system we got some issues.
It's broken.
Well, you know, I'm a glass half full kind of person. You know, a lot of you have never traveled outside the country. I have. I've been to different countries, and I'm here to tell you, a system is only. We got phones going off everywhere. Live TV. There you go. A system is only as good as the people in it. Our system as government, the way it's set up, is one of the best. It really is. It's got a lot of checks and balances, but it requires the courts to uphold the laws and regulations.
And they're not.
And they're not. When the courts start engaging in politics, which is what is going on, has repeatedly gone on in Kentucky, and now the Donald Trump case. You know, again, I don't like Donald Trump. You can't lump me over with a Trump person, because I'm not. But, you know, again, my mom had a saying, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Whatever Donald Trump did, you stop that from whatever Donald Trump did, you know, here's the other thing. This happened a while ago. He was president for 4 years. For 4 years, the feds never made a case against him. Where's the, you know, for 4 years goes by, 5, 6 years goes by, and now this is just going to trial. Really? I mean, it doesn't sound like this was that difficult. This was a paper case, basically. This was a paper case. And with the key witness being one of the biggest liars there is. A guy who in order to protect myself and get my own ass out of jail early, probably, I'm going to throw Donald Trump under the bus. The lawyer.
And they're holding Donald Trump responsible for what his attorney did. He was trusting his attorney to do the right thing, but they're holding him responsible for what his attorney did. How can that be right?
It's not. That's what I'm saying. I don't like this case. I think that first off, this case should have never been tried where it was trial, number 1. Number 2, this case should have never been brought. If anybody's guilty of this. So if I trust a lawyer, if you're a lay person out there and you go to a lawyer, and a lawyer, let's say it's a tax attorney. Okay, a lot of lawyers do taxes. You go to a lawyer, you don't know taxes, you know, you're a businessman, you don't know taxes, you trust your lawyer, right? You go and your lawyer does all this criminal stuff and then throws you under the bus.
How can that be your fault? How can you be held liable for what he did? How's that possible?
I don't know. And that's why I think this case, more red flags on this case. This case reeks of red flags. And I am pretty confident it is going to get overturned for, you know, all there's more reasons here I didn't even get into. For all the reasons I got into and the ones I didn't get into, it needs to be overturned. Whether you like Donald Trump, hate Donald Trump, these issues set incredibly bad precedent for anybody who follows. If these issues are not addressed, and in a court of appeals, and a court of appeals doesn't kick this back and say, no, here is why, you're setting a very, very dangerous precedent that anybody now can be tried if they don't like you. One of you guys may be next. If the cops don't like you, if the prosecution doesn't like you, if it's a political thing, if you're. You know, we got politicians running here in Kentucky. I mean, a lot of people are Rand Paul fans. Let's say all of a sudden, and I'm using this as an example, okay? So don't, Rand Paul, I'm a Rand Paul fan, okay? But let's say, I'm, again, using him as an example. What if Rand Paul pisses off the state police or a state prosecutor, and they start digging, and they just come up with something? And Rand Paul's not an attorney; he's an eye doctor, and his attorney did something. I mean,
it evidently doesn't have to be factual. All they got to do is come up with something they made up, because this is not factual that Trump did anything. It's factual that his attorney did something.
Well, it's a big leap going from paying a porn star, and you know, there's a lot of reasons. Again, forget about the morality here. I know there's a lot of Christians out there watch, and forget about the morality for a minute. Okay, again, not a Trump fan, and I hate that I'm having to defend him, but there's a lot of reasons to pay off a porn star to shut her up, other than a presidential election. Okay, he was married. Okay? He's on TV all the time. I mean, even if he wasn't running for president, would he have done this anyway? Probably. Okay? So, you know, you tell me so from now on, every politician out there running for office or in office, this sets a precedent that they can come after you for anything in your private life that your lawyer does and recommends you do. I mean, to me, then go after all of them. Either this is a justice system for all, or it's a justice system for who we pick.
That's the point. You say your glass is half full, but mine is totally empty, and I'll tell you why. 2 points for sure. We're a nation that says that everybody's equal under the law. Everybody, equal under law. We're all supposed to be treated the very same, and yet that is not going on in this nation right now, big time. It's not going on. And secondly, you say your glass is half full, but everywhere you look, this is going on. So my glass is empty. Yours may be half full, but mine is empty.
Well, this is one trial. This is a high-profile trial, okay? When you operate in the court systems all the time, and you sit around and watch different court cases and everything, I'll say this. This is bad. It sets bad precedent, and I'm pretty sure the Court of Appeals is going to have something to say about that, okay? Here's the thing, folks. In my opinion, my humble opinion, for the most part, I still believe most judges are honest. Most cops are honest. And most trials, that's why the glass is half full. Most trials aren't like this, okay? They're just not. Which is also a red flag for this trial.
I agree with what you're saying. When you mention shoulder cameras, and you tell people that you think anybody who's enforcing law should wear a shoulder camera to show exactly how it was done and what they did. And yet, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to make that the law. The honest police will go along with it. 10 ways to Sunday. They're all for that. But it never happens because of those few who don't want it to happen. Most of the time, it's the ones in charge, because they don't want things to go against them in the event it is wrong. They don't want that. So and most of the time, it's the ones in charge that don't want this to happen. And the thing about it is, if we allow that, your glass can't be half full, because the one, even though it's just a few, and most do have good hearts, like you have, they want to see the right thing done, but it doesn't happen because of the ones who are in power do not want it to happen.
That's your legislature. That's your state legislature, your state representatives and your state senators, okay? They can make that happen overnight. Your state legislature has the power and authority to meet next legislation session and make a law that says all evidence rooms in the state of Kentucky must have random outside inspections at least once every 2 years or whatever, from an outside objective aid, or by, like most states do, by the Attorney General's office. That's what should happen. That's your legislature, which, by the way, in Kentucky, over 90% of them got voted right back in this primary election. You pick the same people to square off in November. So, body cameras, same thing. Your state legislature could legislate you will wear body cameras. And here's the rules.
Good start.
Well, that's your legislature. Cities too. Your cities, like Mayor Keck's city of Somerset, could say city police are going to wear body cameras. I think some of them do actually up there.
Yes, but it's not a requirement, and they do have access to them where they can get at the data on the camera and change it or make it. Of course, we got a man, I think, who can detect if that happens. But when you go to them and you say, I don't believe what you're saying has happened, they say, well, here's the camera, here's what it said. You can't believe that anymore because they have access to it.
Well, here's what happens. If in a corruption case, if they have altered the body cameras, you have, now I've got my expert sitting back here who knows, you have what's called metadata, am I correct, on video. You can tell if that's been altered. But then again, this comes down to a trial. If you're on trial in a criminal case and you're counting on the body cameras to show just what's what, then you better have the money to hire an attorney that can have an expert, send the body cameras off, detail them, hey, they were turned off, this is how much they were turned off, or that there was metadata missing or somebody's altered those body cameras. That takes an expert witness.
It's everywhere you look. Everywhere you look. We've got to have equal justice under the law or this nation will not continue.
It's in a lot of places, but I'm still a glass half full person because I see most cases the judges do the right thing. And in most cases, they force people to turn over stuff. And in most cases, if you can't afford something, that the judge will say, no, I want this turned over. I still believe most cops, most judges, in most cases, are done right. Now, there is a difference, and I get into this in my book, my next book. There is a big difference between an honest mistake and this Donald Trump thing and what happened with these cops, okay? There's a big difference. Judges are human beings. And if you got a judge that, for the most part, he or she is doing the right thing, they follow the law, there's a lot of discretion in the law. Judges in any decision can decide between this and this. And anywhere in between these two things, in that discretion, they're okay. And for the most part, they follow that. It's when they go out of that and they engage in something that will cause extreme prejudice on either side is when they get in trouble. And for the most part, folks, most judges don't do that. But sometimes judges make mistakes. They just do. And there's a difference between an honest mistake where, you follow the description, but you read it wrong or something. The law can be just confusing as hell, I'm telling you. There's a difference between an honest mistake and a whole lot of red flags leading up to a decision. Okay? And you don't usually see that. But what you see in the news a lot is high-profile cases. And the reason the news covers this kind of stuff is it's a high-profile case. The run-of-the-mill case that happens every day in your everyday courtrooms, criminal cases, are usually pretty fair. Usually, okay? For the most part. But not always. But here's the thing. When you set precedent, then what that does is that skews the law towards prosecution. Then it's not fair for anybody. Then the judge doesn't have that discretion. Bad precedent, when judges make cases and they're upheld, bad case law, and it sets bad precedent, that takes that discretion away from the judge. Then the judge doesn't have that discretion to say, no, I'm not going with this. Once a U.S. Supreme Court or a state Supreme Court says, no, this is it. Everybody's your host.
That very system right there has a fallacy. What happens is, every time that a bad precedent is set, it stacks up. And the next one stacks up. And the next one stacks up. And after a while, there's so much precedent for corruption that we get what we've got now.
Well, the pendulum usually swings. If you go back, I'm old enough to where if you go back in time, okay, courts will send if they swing over this way too far to the left, then there's a bunch of cases, and then it'll swing back to the right, and it'll swing back to the left, and over time, usually you have middle ground with results, usually. And I think that's what will happen here. We'll see. I mean, we can sit and predict stuff all day long. What I predict on this is I predict that the Court of Appeals will not allow this to set bad precedent. If they do, it'll go to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court's going to say no, just on that one thing of, no, we're talking about the Trump case, just on that one thing, conflicts of interest. This wasn't just the appearance of a conflict of interest. These were conflicts of interest. Documented. Folks, let me repeat this in case you didn't, because we covered this right at the beginning. In the court system, if a judge has the appearance of meaning one, the appearance of a conflict of interest, you should recuse yourself. This guy had several conflicts of interest. One of them, what was it, $70 million, or what was it? Whatever, however much money it was his daughter was making.
Not just the appearance, documented.
Yeah, these were actual conflicts of interest, and he did not recuse himself off the case. That's the first big red flag right there. As soon as that happened, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute here. There's something up. We only have 5 minutes left. So, to wrap it up, I know some folks out there are, my brother Harvey's crying in his coffee. Will Trump go to jail? Probably not. He's got a whole team of lawyers. This will probably get overturned. We'll see what happens. My guess is it's going to stay in the court system and be kicked around for a while. Okay, so whether you like Trump, hate Trump, whatever, irregardless of how you feel about Donald Trump, this case has some major red flags that just doesn't look good. It just looks political. Whether it is or not, it looks that way. It has the appearance that way, that this was about politics, not about justice. And for my Democrat friends out there, this is not going to help the Democrats. I don't believe. Half the country likes Donald Trump. Okay? I'm not one of them, but half the country likes Donald Trump. You can't just say, deport half the country. And when people who are on the fence, who really don't give a crap one way or another, the moderates decide presidential elections. Let me just say this. Moderates like me, who believe in border security, who I don't want to align myself with a party. I think that both these parties, especially at the federal level, are bought off. They're corrupt. They need to go, okay? Moderates decide elections. And moderates see this kind of case, and it just rubs them the wrong way. I may be a moderate that I don't like Donald Trump, but I didn't like this. So I'm going to send a message to the Democrat Party. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. Democrats, if you think that can't happen, you better think again. I have friends on both sides. They're going to stay my friends on both sides, whether they like Biden or Trump. I don't care. But I'm telling you, what I'm being told by a lot of moderates or people that maybe don't like Donald Trump that much, this was upsetting to them. This bothers me, and I can't stand the man. And this bothers me. Will that affect this upcoming election? It very well may. So I think this may backfire on the Democrats' face. To my Democrat friends out there, I'm sorry. We call balls and strikes here, don't we? We call balls and strikes, and it remains to be seen. But this was not good. So I think this may have an opposite effect. Last word. We got 1 minute.
We document everything we say before we say it. We go through our documents and make sure that what we say can be verified by documentation. So we're trying to tell you the truth in every way we know how. So please listen to us, and please go vote, and please take interest in this, because your family, I'm an old gentleman, my time's about done. So no matter what I do, or no matter what the world does, it's not going to affect me a whole lot. But you and yours, it will affect. So please say or do something to stop this.
And before the next show happens, we will have a rule. No phones. We've had, 6 phones go off in here. I apologize for the interruptions, you guys. Okay, so, folks, we will see you next time on Truth or Politics. And last word, please go to YouTube. Look up Jim Fowler, the interview I did with Jim Fowler on Truth or Politics. Watch that interview of what happened to that guy and how the justice system ruined his life because they got mad at him because he tried to do the right thing. That's what it came down to. Folks, we'll see you next time on Truth or Politics. Thanks.